Most people actually don't even try and change their problems at all. For the most part, the majority of people just spend their lives avoiding their problems or ignoring them, sweeping them under the rug, or just pretending that they're not there. So it's actually a really courageous thing to get to the point where you actively decide you want to make a change. The problem that I think that most people fall into the trap of doing when they do want to make a change to their problems is they often try too hard to change their situation around them, or perhaps try and change other people. But the reality is, if we want to change our problems, the only way we can really do it in a lasting way is to change ourselves. And to do that, we have to change our way of thinking. See, our current problems exist here within this space. They're a result, either directly or indirectly, of our current way of thinking. In fact, if you remember that old problem that you used to be stuck on, isn't it true that at some point along the way, you kind of gradually had to change your way of thinking to get out of the problem space and into the solution space where you are now? You see, you can change your way of thinking. And the best way to do that is through the power of communication. And by communication, I don't just mean me here communicating with you on this screen in front of your eyes right now, because I'm just the navigator, okay? But you're the one in the driver's seat of your own mind. All I can do is offer you some ideas, some suggestions, even some directions or instructions on how you can better communicate with yourself. And make no mistake, we are always communicating with ourselves all the time. It's just for the most part we don't realize that we're doing it. In other words, it's an unconscious process. But if we're always communicating with ourselves anyway, then it makes sense to learn how to better communicate with ourselves in a way that will help us get out of that problem space and into the solution space where we want to be. Speaking of which, here's something else that I'd like you to become aware of now. And that is, as we move forward throughout this video series, you're going to become a lot clearer about the reason why I was making such a big fuss about you congratulating yourself back in that first video. In other words, as we move on, before you're done here today, you're going to understand with 100% certainty the reason why I was asking you to do that. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do now. And that is to not wait until you have that certainty before deciding to take the leap of faith out of your comfort zone and congratulate yourself now. Because that's how you learn a very important process called self-trust. Because self-trust is the missing key. It's the secret ingredient that enables your unconscious mind to become a lot less resistant to that change that you're looking for, and instead become a lot more receptive to that change that you're looking for. Now here's another little self-trust exercise for you to try and emphasize. See, after you've completed this video series here, the next step is to make contact, either with us or with somebody else, whoever you feel most comfortable with, that's up to you. And then the following step is to actually sit down with somebody and do some therapy or coaching, again, whether it's in person or we offer Skype sessions, whatever's going to work best for you, that's up to you. But here's the thing that I'd like you to take on board, and that is that you don't have to do that straight away. It's okay to kind of think about it for a while. So just as you took a while to think about, actually taking the initiative to search for help to get to this stage, so too is it okay to take a while to kind of absorb and digest some of these ideas before you move on to the next step too. And the reason why I'm trying to get you familiar with this way of thinking, like it's okay to take your time, is because even when you do go and sit down and do some one-on-one sessions, it's not like every single suggestion that a therapist offers you is going to sort of just click into place straight away. Sometimes it will, but it doesn't always work like that. And so to make sure you're going to get the most out of it, it's important for you to have a clear understanding of how this process works. I'd really like to make it so that after every single one of these videos and after every single session that you do, you get to walk away with this brilliant sort of epiphany moment of realization, an aha moment as they call it, where you walk away going, I'm so clear about this thing, my whole life has changed as a result of that experience. And while sometimes it will be like that, sometimes it doesn't always work like that. And that's okay. See, back in the day at a younger age, I was actually in a similar situation to what you are right now. I was searching for a therapist. I remember it was a pretty daunting, kind of intimidating experience at first. And I remember that, I'd sit down with this therapist, and some of the ideas that they gave me, some of the things they told me made sense. But a lot of them, I guess, was sort of a little bit sort of too outside of my zone of familiarity at the time. And so I was like, okay, not really sure what to make of that at the time. So I guess I assumed that it wasn't working, wasn't doing much. But here's the funny thing. Sometimes what would happen is, sometimes even months or even years down the track, I'd have a particular experience. And it was like those ideas had been planted like seeds, in soil. They'd just been sitting there. And then when I'd have these certain experiences, it was like, then they clicked into place. It was like then the seeds sort of started to germinate and the roots would take hold and grow when they wouldn't have done so had I not have had exposure to those ideas back at a time when they were unfamiliar. So, see, that's how powerful change can happen too. In fact, if you were to go back in that time machine and have a chat with your younger self, even though your younger self might resist a lot of those ideas at first, your best bet would probably be to plant certain seeds or ideas or suggestions in their mind to give them a better chance to kind of click into place a lot earlier than what they would have had to otherwise. So the message that I'd really like you to take on board here is to understand how important it is not to put pressure on yourself. Pressure is the worst thing for facilitating that process of self-trust. Pressure is going to break the relationship you have with yourself. And I see it all the time. It's one of the most common mistakes people make. They wait until they have this perfect outcome before they feel that they have permission to recognize or congratulate themselves. And so, what they're doing is they're robbing themselves of the opportunity to recognize, congratulate, and condition all those little steps along the way. And so when people do that, that's a perfect recipe for on-again, off-again change and getting stuck going around in circles. When things are going well, that they're on the wagon, but then when things don't go so well, they fall off the wagon, kind of like yo-yo dieters do with weight loss. Only people fall into the same pattern, the same trap when it comes to changing anything in their life at all. And so with that idea in mind, take a moment to give yourself that permission to congratulate yourself for the steps that you've taken in whatever way you know how to do that. And even if it feels like an unfamiliar way of thinking at first. Because what you've done so far is most definitely an act of courage, whether you're aware of it or not, and that's something that is most definitely deserving of your own self-approval. With that thought in mind, well done. You're on the right track. I'll see you in the next video.
Our current problems exist within our current thinking, so to change ourselves, we have to change our thinking. Whether we realize it or not, we're always communicating with ourselves. So the best way to change our thinking is by learning how to communicate with ourselves in a way that will take the pressure off and instead build self-trust. To reduce the pressure we put on ourselves, it's important to take time to learn patience and realize that the best change happens when the seeds of thought grow slowly over time. In the following lessons, Stuart will show you how your unconscious mind works and how you can use your awareness to look at yourself in a way that will help you solve your problems and change the patterns you've been stuck in.